Welcome, All Elite Wrestling fans, to episode 15 of the All Elite podcast. We are here right off of the end of Double or Nothing, AJ and Andrew. That was a pretty great show, AJ. What are you thinking? How are you feeling off of that first show?
I mean, I'm gonna preface by saying I'm in a daze. I'm really exhausted, but that I can't remember the last time I've been that thoroughly excited by a show, start to finish. I'm trying to remember, and like the only things I can think of are things from when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too, man. I think that this show was just a really exciting show from top to bottom. There are some like nitpicky things I think I could talk about, but other than that, every match was really exciting. I had fun throughout the entire show. There was
Every
nothing
match
that really
delivered.
And then they really fulfilled everything I wanted with the last surprise, and both surprises were really good. So, and we'll obviously get into all of that. This episode is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We've obviously dropped 2 episodes this week, so we've gotten a ton of content out there, but we just want to talk about Double or Nothing briefly. Yeah. Then later on this week, once we've got Phil back in the studio,
we'll go more in depth.
We'll go more in depth with every match and sort of break everything down. But to start things off, we have to start off with the Casino Battle Royale, which happened to start the buy-in show. This match was interesting. They sort of just... I liked the idea of the 5-5-5, but the way they pulled it off in the match...
The execution wasn't great.
Yeah, it wasn't great. And we had sort of questioned it going into the show.
Yeah, and the first time they didn't even announce the first 5 coming in. They did it for the second, so that was a little finicky too.
Yeah, so there was just... That was a little confusing. And then... Like, they had surprises down the stretch with, like, so they sort of tried to save their surprises for the last 5, and it was just
reasonable.
Like,
I mean, it was a pre-show Battle Royal, so I guess that makes sense, but...
Yeah, and then, obviously, big number 21 was Adam Page, which was cool.
And we talked about that in the last podcast, and you guys probably know our thoughts about that, but end of the day, I'm glad we're going to get to see Adam Page and Jericho.
Well, and I think by the time the show was over, it's okay. I understand now. Yeah, I get it.
I do too.
I get why we're not gonna have Dean win that match, because it creates much better matches to not.
Yep.
And it creates a much better finish to the end of your show to not.
And you also you could have Dean win it, but you're not putting over a new guy that way. If you have Adam Page win it, then you have a relatively newer, lesser-known star who's getting a push. If it's Dean and Omega, or if it's Dean and Jericho, then you might as well be watching New Japan or WWE.
Exactly, and we'll have to get more into the habit of calling him Moxley than Dean.
Yeah, sorry, Mox.
But, yeah, and I think the biggest part of it all, I was a little bit disappointed going into the beginning of the show, but coming to the end of the show, it was
180.
The excitement and everything is so perfect that Adam Page winning that match was good, and it was and like I had sort of by the end of it all, I was like, all right, this isn't that bad. The way they did the finish wasn't that bad. It just wasn't necessarily how I wanted it. But like I said, by the end of the show, everything sort of paid off. And the only thing I think I could say negatively about the Battle Royal is they wanted to do this 5-5-5 thing to sort of give people a chance to highlight everything they were doing, and almost the first 10 or so, the first 5 for sure didn't really feel like anything, and then the first 10 they did a couple of things, but it didn't really feel like we were highlighting too much of anyone individually. But
I don't remember if it was you or Phil, but somebody said if it ain't broke, don't fix it when it comes to Battle Royals, and I think that was made. Whoever said that is clearly right, because it's a battle royal. Battle royals are great. Just do a battle royal.
And then the second pre-show match we got was Kip Sabian versus Sammy Guevara, and I was a little interested just in the placement initially in the way the show was set up.
Yeah.
But as I thought about it, it made more sense. I thought that the battle royal would get people in their seats, and then it definitely kept them in their seats, because Kip Sabian versus Sammy G, the crowd was full and they were into it for a pre-show match, and that was something that I appreciated. As like I don't really watch a lot of pre-show WWE or anything when their pay-per-views happen, but when you watch a pre-show WrestleMania match, there's half the crowd there and they don't really give a shit about what's going on, and they're still at the merch stand and stuff,
because that show is like 7 hours, so it's pretty unreasonable to even be there the whole time.
Exactly. And then even like the cruiserweight matches, which is what you could almost look at this as, they don't necessarily get the attention that they deserve. But on this show, because of the way they set the card up, these guys had the crowd's full attention, and they worked with it pretty well. I didn't see anything wrong with this match. I was really excited throughout all of it.
To Sammy G's Panda Head entrance, that was fun. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I appreciated Sammy G going a step above to make himself stand out in his entrance. There weren't too many special entrances for some of the newer guys, and even though he didn't come out on top, Kip Sabian ended up pulling off the victory after Sammy missed a 630 splash.
They did some great spots. They did the shooting star press on the barricade. Oh my god, that was insane. And that double suplex thing.
Yeah, and then like you said during the match, Sammy's 630 splash was super clean.
It was clean as hell. Like
hit Sabian's knees, and then Sabian hits him with the Deathly Hallows for the 1-2-3.
It was
and that
perfect.
gives Kip Sabian his first victory, and Sammy G looked really good throughout the match. That it didn't necessarily hurt him too bad to lose. Both guys came out
looking very good.
I'm interested to see where they go with either of these two guys in the future. So that was a great match. Then our first match on the main show, we get SoCal Uncensored versus the Strong Hearts.
Also a great match.
Definitely a great match.
It felt like
a Dragon Gate match.
It felt exactly like a Dragon Gate match, and I couldn't have asked for anything else. It was fast-paced. It was move after move. If there was something that went wrong, you can't tell because something amazingly right just happened another second later.
Exactly, man. And I just appreciated the way they gave OWE a chance to really look good. Despite the fact that they didn't come out on top, SoCal Uncensored ended up winning this match, as I predicted in our previous show, but pat myself on the back for that one. But it was still a really great match, and another match where they made OWE look really good and made each member of that team look really good, that it was really nothing I could complain about.
The only thing I could complain about is they were talking about new tag team rules, and then SCU was going to announce the tag team rules, and that never happened. That was weird, but we'll get into that more in the other podcast. But other than that, the match itself was, I think, picture perfect. I don't have anything to complain about. It was just great.
Yeah, and
it was a great way to open it.
Yeah, and the podcast that we plan to drop in the future will definitely address some of the commentary stuff and issues with that, and that is definitely something I could agree with you. I did take note of the fact that they were sort of mentioning that they were going to do their own little spin on tag team rules, and then we got cut off of it, and there was nothing mentioned of it again. But otherwise, a fantastic opener match for people who weren't really expecting much from OWE and SCU. They got a really exciting match to start. And then the next match, we finally get the Britt Baker versus Kylie Ray versus Nyla Rose match. And this was the first exciting announcement for everyone, because as we roll into this match, Brandy comes
Rhodes
out before the match even begins, and Brandy sort of starts talking. And people had gotten the vibe that Brandy was going to enter this match. And I was almost looking at like this was going to be a really disappointing show if this is where we're going. And Twitter had mentioned some stuff, so... Then Brandy says that she wants this first match to be awesome, brings out Awesome Kong, and now we have a fatal four-way match, and that shit was crazy. That was a dope surprise.
That was amazing. I really hope to God that this means Awesome Kong is getting signed. I'm guessing the reason she didn't go over or didn't even take the pin is probably because she's maybe not officially signed yet, but I feel like it's coming. I feel like it's got to be coming at this point. If they're putting her in their big inaugural women's match, I feel like they're going to try to put an emphasis on Kong going into the future.
And that could be really exciting. Having Awesome Kong almost felt like something that wasn't going to happen. I think we maybe mentioned it once as like a little bit of a pipe dream thing, but
because she's been doing very good and making a lot of money as an actress or an actor. And I also want to point out we have Aja Kong and Awesome Kong on the same roster again for the first time in like 15 years.
And almost the best part of this is, despite Awesome Kong's involvement in this match, Britt Baker still ended up pulling out the win.
The ace.
She didn't end up pinning Awesome Kong. Neither Awesome Kong nor Nyla Rose ended up taking the pin. Instead, everybody's favorite, Kylie Ray, she got pinned, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Britt Baker landed her finisher on Kylie Ray, gets the 1-2-3, and that finishes up that match. And it was just a really exciting vibe and feel to that match, especially just all of the whole Awesome Kong announcement, and you were literally bait and switched into thinking that this was going to be something really shitty, and ended up being better. And the next match we get is the Best Friends versus Angelico and Jack Evans. This was another really exciting match where we were able to see Two showcase teams where the best friends were obviously pretty well known to the crowd, but Angelico and Evans weren't. And they played a really good heel tag team. I like the way Jack Evans did a lot of like yelling that the crowd was able to hear. I think that's something that he probably does in Mexico a lot.
Yeah,
and could transition well in for an American audience. You see that in Japan too, where they're just yelling and talking shit in the middle of a match, which I love.
Yeah, I do too. It's fun, and especially in Japan where the crowd kind of quiets down and you can hear it easier. Also, I really like this match because one, it was a great match, and two, its placement on the card was great because after you had everybody excited because Awesome Kong came in and everybody was going crazy, I don't want to say this is a cool down match because it was a great match, but it did help to transition into what you're going into next.
Yeah, there just wasn't necessarily too much on the line for this match.
Yeah.
And while there was still a ton of high-flying and exciting moves, you didn't have to invest too much time paying attention to what was going on or the story behind the scenes because there wasn't necessarily much of a story behind the scenes.
Yeah,
so
you could sit back.
This was just a really comfy, fun, exciting, high-flying match. The best friends ended up coming out on top, which was a little bit surprising to me, but I don't know. I guess I just expected Angelico and Evans to get a bit of a push, but
yeah, especially with the AAA deal, you would expect that they might be in the interest of pushing them, especially considering the Lucha Brothers lost, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, they ended up getting the pin on Jack Evans after hitting their tag team finisher. And then after the match, all four are looking to shake hands, but the best friends are like, no, we don't want to shake hands. We want to hug.
Only hugs.
So Evans and Angelico think about it, and as they go to do so, the lights go out. And everyone was buzzing, which is cool.
No
I
idea
didn't know what we were
happen.
even buzzing for. And the Super Smash Brothers thing ended up being really cool. That's what happened when the lights came on. But the crowd really didn't know what the fuck was going on.
I didn't either. I don't think anybody did. And I kind of like
I at least knew who they were.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I knew it was... Because when I saw the mask, that I know that. But I don't know. I thought it was cool. I think anytime there's lights out in wrestling, I'm going to mark out, even if it's stupid. And this was not stupid. This was cool, and it established the Smash Brothers as a tag team that's going to fuck up the division, and I like that a lot. But overall, anytime there's a lights out in wrestling, I'm going to pop.
Yeah, and I was. It's not to say that I wasn't super interested. It's just like if you think about tag teams in general, there's not necessarily a huge tag team that could have popped up in this situation.
No, not really.
So the Super Smash Brothers, I was super into it. I've been calling for them to be involved in this show for weeks now. So them to pop up, I had sort of.
We got the Evil Unos.
I didn't expect it, but when the lights came back on and I saw them, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then the lights went out again, and I was like, what the fuck is really going on? And then we see all the Evil Unos, and I was like, oh, this is sick. Because I think the biggest issue with the crowd is the Super Smash Brothers used to be something way different.
Yeah,
they don't necessarily
silly,
look
fun,
like
Chikara.
The goofy tag team. They're not both dressed to look like a team necessarily anymore. We have Evil Uno and then Stu Dos. Like, they just both look a little different than what you're used to if you've seen them in the past.
Completely different.
So,
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen them wrestle as they've looked like this. I've only followed. I remember when the Twitter was going black and they just started to do the turn, but I've never really watched them with this gimmick. But to see all the Evil Unos just fucking flooding the ring was crazy.
Yeah, the Evil Unos thing is really dope, and I think it's almost something that Uno just did on his own for a while, because I think they had separated and weren't necessarily doing a tag team.
I believe so, yeah.
I've looked on both of their Twitters, and that's what it seemed like. So he had sort of developed this persona on his own, and now they're both utilizing it together, and that was sick. Just we get the Evil Unos come together, and it sets the pace and it sets the story for something really cool, hopefully, going forward that they can build off of for the next couple shows. So
especially because we're building up a tag team division, I like disrupting that tag team division.
And our next match was the Joshi 6-women tag team match. This match was not bad, but it was definitely a match that was built to be the slowdown match that you were sort of talking about. And the crowd was into it. There was a "This is Wrestling" chant that took place, but it was difficult to just look past how this match went on a little too long.
It was a little long.
And then the biggest issue was there was a botch at the end where the timekeeper rang the bell too early.
Yeah, that was weird.
And then they kept the match going, and then the match ended just another minute later.
And that said, it wasn't terrible. It was a fine match, and it it served the purpose of being the cool down that you really needed. You needed a buffer there, absolutely, and it was a very, very good placement. I don't know. I didn't necessarily have a problem with it. I think the biggest thing I'm going to take away from this match is it gives me a lot of hope for the women's division because all of these girls were clearly very good wrestlers.
And I think my biggest thing, and I sort of figured this out as the show was continuing on, I thought about it, and my biggest issue with this match is there was too much. There's too many unfamiliar names and too many. And
you're throwing a lot. You're throwing a lot.
It's not a problem that they're from an unfamiliar country, but it's an even bigger gap to get over than if it was, say, 6 independent wrestlers that you had never heard of. These are 6 women from another country that their name is hard to pronounce. It's just different. It's not necessarily something you're used to seeing. So maybe if we had got a really big one-on-one Joshi match, that they had sort of spent more time building up this one character and this one character, and they're going to beat the shit out, or whatever it is.
No, I agree with you. I think that, because personally, I think you see the best of Joshi when you get those one-on-ones, and when you can get those really stiff matches, and also those really well-paced psychological matches, like Hakoto and Kandori, and there's like Manami Toyota. Like, you have people who, they're not necessarily beating the hell out of each other, but they're putting on a very, very well meticulous and thought out match, and I think it's harder to do that when you have a 3-on-3.
In our next matchup, we got Cody versus Dustin Rhodes.
God.
This is probably one of the biggest, most promoted matches of the whole Double or Nothing.
My personal favorite. It's got to be this one out of all.
It was
matches.
the one we slept on the most. It was the one we probably, you could go back on our previous podcast and hear us say we absolutely don't want it. We didn't want to see it. We slowly came around to it as time drew closer to the pay-per-view event, but initially we didn't want this match, and
Not at all.
In watching it, we loved it. It was a phenomenal match. Cody and Dustin both did a great job.
Bloody as
This
hell.
will definitely be the match I think that we'll spend the longest time breaking down when we do break down matches on Tuesday.
This is one I'm gonna rewatch. Like before we do the podcast, I'm gonna watch this one again.
Absolutely, and it was something we had made mention of, the fact that Dustin's new face paint was going to be something that was utilized with blood.
You made mention of that. I said I hated the face paint, and you said it's gonna look sick when he gets gigged, and you were 100% on the money.
Yeah, it was crazy, and just the scene of the whole match the vibe.
And I was talking to a friend during it, and they said, literally, they've been watching WWE so much that they've been desensitized to seeing this much blood, and it started to gross them out. And it wasn't even, it was a lot, but it wasn't like a death match amount, but it was a lot. It hit the Muda scale somewhere.
It was definitely more than what you're used to seeing in even just most of, I mean,
even
I think
in
you
most
see
indies.
it in a lot, and you see it sometimes in indies, you see it sometimes maybe in like Impact or something, but
and like Game
you don't
Changer,
see it a lot.
Sure.
And I just think it's something that they'll have to be careful about doing too much. It fit the story here 100%, and that's where I have no problem with it, because I can definitely understand where a casual fan could look at that and be like, yo, this is crazy. Like, I don't want to see this, or this is too much, because at points you were getting shots where the blood is literally like shooting out of Dustin's head, and you're like, oh shit, like this is getting out of control.
When I was a kid,
and with the face paint, it makes you feel like it's getting even more out of control.
Yeah,
like, so
and then
like,
it was on Cody's body, and Cody's blonde hair was soaking it up. And, God.
Yeah, and it wasn't a bad match at all. Some of these matches had a couple of, like, botches and stuff that you could take notice to. I guess the one thing that I'll mention that wasn't too great in this match was in Cody's entrance when he did that little break in the throne thing. It felt cool in the moment, but by the time he had hit the throne and it exploded because of
I thought he was just going to knock it over.
I thought he was going to break it down, which is like, okay, you can, if you think that's cool, you think it's cool. If you think it's lame, you think it's lame. But the fact that he hit it and it exploded makes no fucking sense, and
silly.
That's stupid. And then after that, like, everything went uphill after that.
Yeah.
So it was great, and I get the whole like symbolism or whatever he's trying to say with it. The live crowd loved it, so there was a purpose for it.
I loved it until the pyro went off.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, like, And they could have had just some really like shitty stone for it. You smash it once, you crack the seat, and then you throw it through it, and it just cracks the rest of it, and you're like sick. Instead, you gotta rely on explosives, and it looks fucking retarded. So it was, but
aside from that, that's just that's the only qualm in what is my favorite match on this pay-per-view, and there were a lot of great matches on this pay-per-view. So keep that in mind, that this match, despite that, amazing.
Oh yeah, and the thing of that is it's literally a 30-second point that was easily forgettable by the time you're done watching the match. It's not necessarily something that you come out of thinking.
You're not finishing that match going, oh man, that chair really sucked.
Cody won. Cody hit the crossroads. They both had exchanged a couple of different crossroads.
Yeah,
Cody finally hits the crossroads, finishes Dustin for the 1-2-3. But afterwards, Cody grabs the mic and he lets Dustin know, you're not going to retire here. Instead, when I signed my contract, I was supposed to do a tag team match with the Bucks at Fight for the Fallen.
Woo!
And my tag team partner is someone that I can choose. He says, I don't need a tag team partner, though. I need my older brother. And
bro, I got to get these tickets fast.
And it sets up a fantastic tag team match between the Young Bucks and the Rhodes brothers down the line. So that's an exciting tag team match that they've got announced that I initially was a little bit like, I don't know, but they told a good story with it, and it's going to be a good match.
Oh, yeah, it will. And it's brothers versus brothers. That's going to be cool. There's a whole aspect to it where I'm sure they're going to dive deep into that. I'm excited to see how they build that up.
Exactly. And then in the next segment, we get Bret Hart. He brings out the AEW Championship.
I think the big thing I took away from this was I was under the assumption Bret Hart had a Legends contract, and I guess he doesn't, or if he does, he doesn't care. But he was at this show. That really, really surprised me. I did not expect him to be doing anything outside of WWE.
Yeah, it was definitely surprising, and just his purpose wasn't necessarily huge in this segment.
No, it was to cool down the crowd in between the main events, obviously, but it was Bret Hart. It was Bret Hart.
Yeah, exactly. And then Bret Hart brings out Adam Page. He's talking about how he's going to challenge for the championship, but before Adam Page can really say anything, he's interrupted by none other than MJF.
Mm-hmm.
And MJF just runs down Adam Page. He runs down Bret Hart. He says that
look out, Bret, there's a fan.
He says that he's the best there is, the best there was, and then he says, no, screw that catchphrase sucks anyway. And he tells Adam Page to just relinquish his championship opportunity to MJF, which I thought was weird, because MJF was literally just thrown out of the match. So, but anyways, and Adam Page obviously isn't going to do that, so he goes to attack MJF.
Mm-hmm.
MJF runs to the back, and Jungle Boy stops him, but apparently MJF doesn't give a fuck about Jungle Boy because he just walks by him. And then Jimmy Havoc stops him. So I thought this was a little bit just weird.
Are we getting a fatal four-way or tag? What's happening here?
I hope it's not a fatal four-way.
It's very weird.
Are Jungle Boy and Jimmy Havoc Adam Page's boys?
I don't know. I guess so, though.
Because the weirdest part to me about that is Jungle Boy's already been established as with Luchasaurus.
Yeah,
so why didn't they have Luchasaurus come out? Especially because Luchasaurus looked really good in that MJF, tag team match.
He like last week he was shitting on both of them, right? Wasn't he?
Yeah, so I think maybe the thing about it is just like maybe MJF was the one who tossed Jungle Boy and Jimmy Havoc out. I didn't necessarily pay that much attention in the Battle Royal.
I didn't either.
Maybe confirm that later on, but that's the only thing. And Jungle Boy and Jimmy Havoc happen to be the ones to just sort of toss MJF from the whole situation.
Yeah. I understood the beginning of this. I understood the point of the segment. You had to cool down the crowd. You're going into the main events, but the end of the segment, it did get really weird. I think if there was one thing I could critique about the whole show is all the promos were kind of hit and miss and a little weird. But aside from that, God, the show was great.
And then like the weird part was we had Bret Hart, after they took MJF out of the arena or whatever, Bret Hart just starts holding up the championship. They don't really say anything. He just holds it up and you can't even see it from the angle. And he's holding it up to show it to Adam Page.
Yeah.
Adam Page is staring right at the championship. They just don't have the right angle, so it made him look stupid. It made the whole thing look kind of stupid, and then they really struggled to get a good angle on the championship anyway. But the championship looked fine. It was great.
It looked great. I really like the plate. I don't love how big the logo is on it, like you mentioned, but I really do like it. And a big logo isn't the worst. I like the UFC belt, and that's basically just a big logo.
And then we get our first main event of the night. We get the AAA World Tag Team Championship match. The Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers. This match was everything you would expect from a Young Bucks versus Lucha Brothers match.
I couldn't
It
say
really
it better
had the
than that.
feel of like a PWG main event tag team match, and that's not a bad thing at all.
I'm sure JR hated it, but I had a great time.
And you could definitely complain about maybe too many kickouts or whatever, but you just got to understand that these are the type of matches, and this is sort of what they're gonna do. And
that's their bread and butter, man. Doing super kicks and crazy moves and kicking out of them and doing big flips. I love it. I love the Young Bucks.
I do hope that at some point these guys sort of like
slow down.
Maybe not even slow down, just take a look at it and say like, okay, I'm watching this match as a fan. Holy fuck, how many times are you gonna kick out?
Yeah,
because that's how you feel sometimes. You're like, holy fuck.
You do lose a little bit.
You feel silly as a fan because you have to suspend your disbelief about something.
There comes a point where you're also not sure, like, okay, well now I don't know if anything means anything. I don't know if any move matters now.
Right, and that's why protecting certain moves and not letting people kick out of 90% of your moveset is a big thing, and it's something that I appreciate from Kenny Omega. But and it wasn't a bad thing. Like I said, that's where in classifying it as a PWG main event, that makes the most sense to me because that's what it felt like, and it wasn't a bad match. It wasn't.
Like we've been saying, like we have the Joshi style, and we're showing that to new audiences. We're showing a Dragon Gate style to new audiences. We're showing a New Japan style match to new audiences. So of course we got to throw in a PWG style match. It's the Young Bucks. They're executive vice presidents. I wouldn't expect anything different.
Yeah, and I think that at least the best part was we didn't have a lot of near falls in a lot of matches throughout the night. So that would have been a problem if we had felt it a lot throughout the whole show. In the Cody and Dustin match, there was a couple of near falls.
I don't think any of those were unwarranted. Those were
it wasn't nearly as much as this match. So if it only happens in one match, you could sort of say, okay, I get it. And the
after
match
like
itself was exciting
it was
and
done. So
yeah, so it was great. They hit their finish. I think that the move that Matt Jackson hit was supposed to be the brain buster on the top rope, maybe. So I'm not too sure.
Me neither.
It was a cool move.
We'll talk about that on the other podcast.
Then we got our main event, Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega for a future championship match. And this was a great match, man.
I noticed. I wrote no notes because I was freaking out.
Yeah, man. The match itself was just a great match between Jericho and Omega. Both men gave it their all. At one point, I thought we were going to see Jericho do that. I thought Jericho was going to take that top rope dragon suplex that Omega did
my God, I did
way
too.
back, and that would have been sick.
We ended
up seeing Omega pretty much break his nose because he was bleeding throughout the whole match through his nose, and that added a sick little effect to a match. And
it's
that
always
was
cool getting busted hard.
That was natural.
Yeah,
that was all natural. So you knew that they didn't necessarily intend it, but it still helped their story. So that was cool.
Yep. 100%. I think there were a few missteps, but really nothing that I can remember. So I think that should be everything that I need to say about that. The match was great, I think, top to bottom. I'm not going to say it was my favorite, but it was definitely like second or third.
Yeah, it was definitely my second favorite match just because it was a good match between Omega and Jericho. They hit pretty sweet moves. I thought Omega Jericho hitting the code breaker on Omega in thin air was pretty sweet.
Oh yeah, and he hit that
when
code
Jericho
breaker
busted out the Judas effect. When he busted out the Judas effect, I thought that was nice.
I really like the Judas effect. We were talking about how it's either going to be really cool or it's going to be really stupid. It's really cool. I really like that. It's all about how he sold it, and he sold that like he got knocked out.
Absolutely, and I think another big part of what I had liked about the Judas effect was the potential of how to reverse it, but I like that on the first time they utilized it, they didn't have anything like that.
That's the right way to do it.
Really quick and easy, and they put the move right over.
And they scream the move's name. Everybody who is watching that show knows what it's called. They know it's a finisher.
Exactly, and Phil had mentioned that it felt abrupt. It felt like an abrupt way to end the match.
And I like that.
That's a good move to have, to abruptly end matches. So.
Some of my favorite matches always end like in a way that you don't think, like not with a bang but with a whimper. But I would say that doesn't really apply here, but it's it's cool. It adds a sense of realism, like it's a fight.
Yeah, and I do have to mention that Omega wasn't able to ever hit his one-winged angel. That move is one of the most protected moves I've ever seen in wrestling, just the way he doesn't have to hit it in every match. He has enough other versatile moves that he can utilize that he doesn't use his big finish.
And I was really thinking
unless he's going to win.
Because of the kind of match. I thought if maybe they weren't going to kick out, but maybe he hit it and Jericho would roll out of the ring or something. But no, we didn't see it at all. And I think that's the right move to make.
Yeah, and like I said, Jericho coming out on top. You set up Jericho and Adam Page. And then obviously after the match is over, Jericho goes to cut his promo, says something about thank yous, and out of nowhere,
thank you from all the fans. I think the fans were getting ready to chant thank you Jericho, but that ended real quick.
Real fucking quick, because out of nowhere we get that close up on Moxley in the crowd, and we're in the chat popping, the crowd is popping, everybody's popping because Moxley's in AEW. He comes down to the ring, beats down Jericho. We all are hoping for him to beat down Omega, but I don't know if any of us were really thinking it was going to happen. Omega gets up.
I was hoping.
And then
he hit Rick Knox, right? Or no, it was I forget the referee's name, but he hit him with the dirty deeds too.
He hit him with it, and then next thing you know, he goes to hit Omega with it. But before he can even hit it, Omega drives him out of the ring. And I think that's the best part too, is they're sort of doing their own spin on it. In WWE or other companies, you might see him come out and just hit the dirty deeds on Omega. End of pay-per-view.
Dude, I was so tired, and I was so excited to sleep tonight, and now I'm fucking wired because of that shit. We gotta talk about the FU, right?
Oh yeah, man. They
brawled
down the ramp. They get up on the poker chips on the stage. Moxley hits Omega with the dirty deeds on top of the poker chips. Lifts Omega up on his shoulders, hits him with the FU off of the chips through what, just some like plastic or glass table looking thing.
I don't know, like tempered glass or something, like kind
of. But it was cool.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Piece of the stage, pretty much.
And it cracked. That thing cracked, whatever it was.
They had Moxley looking like a huge star coming out of that. And
kind of off topic, by the way, I love these tables they're using. They're awesome.
Yeah, the tables are good. Everything is good. That was a great show.
It really was.
Super exciting finish. Every surprise was good in its own way. We got Awesome Kong. We got the Super Smash Brothers surprise. We obviously got the Moxley surprise to finish everything off. We got Bret Hart. We got great tag team matches. We got future championship matches set up. It was an amazing first show. By the end of the night, everything was great. There's not, like I said, there's maybe a couple nitpicky things, but otherwise, this was an awesome, awesome first show.
I think it's fair to say, at least for me personally, I had doubts. I had reservations. Man, if this show sucks, I don't know. Maybe I was wrong to bet on the company. Maybe it is just going to be a stupid Young Bucks wish fulfillment show. Maybe it's going to be a dumb promotion. I don't know. I had doubts. I didn't think that was going to happen, but it was in the back of my mind. All of them are erased after this show. This is one of my favorite shows that I can remember in, I want to say like maybe 5 to 7 years, and that's a pretty damn long time.
Yeah, man, especially because it wasn't at 4:00 in the morning like some Wrestle Kingdoms. Like there might be a couple Wrestle Kingdoms and G1s that have been really exciting at the end of the night, but it's so late that I'm ready to pass out anyway. This show was super exciting and
never
great
the same
show.
Feeling watching the replay, as good as it is.
The next one, I'm looking forward to how they build the Fyter Fest.
Dude, I'm buying those tickets as soon as possible for Fight for the Fallen.
Exactly, man. And then Fight for the Fallen looks like it's going to be a huge show.
I don't even care if Moxley's on it. I'm going to that show.
I'm excited. That pretty much wraps things up for this short little Double or Nothing podcast. We'll be back probably later on next week with a full roundup with Phil about everything that happened on Double or Nothing this week. AJ, you got anything you want to say as we close everything out?
I love All Elite Wrestling. That's about it. You can follow me on Big Match AJ on Twitter, AJ the Fitzy on Instagram, and that's about it for me.
Exactly, and you can always follow the All Elite Podcast on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. Later on this week, we will be announcing the official winner of the Double or Nothing prediction challenge that we did on Twitter. So keep an eye out for that. And otherwise, thanks for being a part of this awesome show. And
thank you, guys.
We'll be back later on this week.
What the hell? Bye. Good God Almighty, the roof just came off. Jon Moxley.